In this clip, we'll be color correcting to match our background footage. Okay, so we're almost done, but we just need to get our sailor to match our footage a little bit better. And one really great way that we can do this is with the individual levels effect. So I'm going to go ahead and type in individual, and individual controls on levels is just the best way to do this. So I'll go ahead and drop that on my sailor pre-comp. And then instead of just going in and adjusting it by eyeballing it, there's actually a mathematical way that we can do this. So I'm going to give you a little crash course in doing color correction for matching these two plates. So what we'll want to do first is open up our Info tab by going to Window and choosing Info. And then we'll want to zoom in on the areas of our footage where we are most concerned about. So that's the white areas and the black areas. So we'll start with white. And if I hover over his hat here and you look up here in the Info tab, you'll notice that I am looking at these values like 255, and it's kind of difficult to color correct based on these types of values. So if I come up here and click on the little hamburger menu, I can choose how I want it to display, and I'm going to choose decimal because I can actually do the math now. Now, one thing you need to know whenever you're working with color as decimals is that 1 means that it is totally white, and 0 means that it's totally black. So if I am hovering over this area of his hat, there's a few parts where it actually is totally white. You can see right here, there's nowhere to go but down from here because it is at 1. So with that in mind, I'm going to pull over this little color correction values text document I've created, and we're just going to go ahead and put in the values for these things. So we've got a 1 all across the board for our sailor values of white. Now let's check out our background values. So I'm going to zoom in, and this is really probably the whitest part of the footage. So like right in here. So I'll pull this back over here and hover over that area, and then I can just come down here with my arrows, and we've got a 0.90, a 0.92, and another 0.92. So what we need to do now is figure out, and this really is pretty easy since this one is at 1, but what we would need to do to get our values from the sailor to be the background values, which is right here. Now, normally, if those had been different, once I come in here and I want to look at the value for the red output white, because that's this first one we have here for R. So it already is at 1, and that one's at 1. So I don't really need to do any math to find the difference. I can just actually change this to 0.9 right here. So I'll pull that back over, and we'll click and go 0.9. And then I just have that off screen, but I have included it in your project files. The next one is 0.92. And then the value for blue is also 0.92. So now when we look at this, if I scroll back up to the top and I toggle on and off levels, you can see that we have drastically reduced how white this is, which is good because now it doesn't look quite so blown out compared to our footage. Now, I don't want to just do that for the white values. I also want to do it for the black values. So let's go ahead and figure out what the black value is for our sailor. I've got this area right in here that's pretty dark, and then I've also got this area on the back of his hat that's pretty dark. But I would say that we actually are probably getting a bit of a darker value right here, just like right in the middle of this shadow. So let's go with that one because we do want to find the darkest value. So hovering over this area here, if I come down here and found my sailor values, I've got a 0.05, a 0.05 again, and a 0.05 again, because I'll round it up since that's a 0.047. And this one, I actually need to put another 0 in there. Okay, so 0.5s all across the board. That's not going to be too difficult to do the math for. And now we need to do the same thing for our black value in this piece of footage. Now, sometimes it's going to be really difficult to find a solid black. So really, at the beginning of your footage, you always want to film one of those cards that's for color correction, just in case you don't happen to have black in your scene. But in our case, we do. So it's okay that we didn't have that. And it's just going to be this color right here, this big black hook. So I'll pull this over and hover over the darkest area that I can see. And we'll just put in a 0.07 and then a 0.04 and then a 0.02. So I'm rounding up on those last two there, since they have a 9. Okay, so now we need to figure out how to assume what we have to get here, because now we're not starting at 1, we're starting at 0.5. And in this case, we wouldn't be starting at 1, we'd be starting at 0, because we are doing the black levels this time. So if I look at my red output black and it's starting at 0, when we add this effect, it doesn't assume what our colors are. So it doesn't know that this 0 actually equals that 0.5 or 0.05 that we found earlier. So I need to find what it would take to get me from that 0.05 up to the background value of 0.07. And that's a difference of 0.02. So I can just subtract these values from these values. So the difference to get from my black here would be a 0.02 for the red. So the difference to get from the green value on the background to the green value on the sailor is going to be negative this time, because this number is lower than this number. So even though it's only 1 away, it's negative this time. So negative 0.01. And then we have a negative 0.03, because this 2 is lower than the 5. So now that we have our difference in our black here, let's go implement those changes. And all we have to do is plug those numbers in now exactly as we have them. So instead of having 0 exactly, we'll just plug in that bottom difference value. So 0.02. And then on the green, we'll put negative 0.01. And then on the blue, we'll do negative 0.03. And now, when I come back out here, we'll be able to see that we've gotten just a slight red tinge to this, that makes sense, because this is going to have a little bit of a red skew because of this red here, and you would even be getting a little bit of red reflection. So now we've edited our black to match the background. And now what I want to do is add another set of levels, because I'm still feeling that the color is a little bit off. So once you get your color correction done, now you can do a little bit of some more creative grading here. So what I would like to do is just take the overall white value down a little bit more, because even though I've matched these two, it still doesn't account for the lighting maybe being a little bit off when we lit this green screen. So if I come in here and just go to the RGB value, and this time I'm not going into the individual levels, I'll just take my output white down just a little bit like that. So I have it at a 0.9 instead of a 0.1. And now it just looks a little bit better integrated. And the reason why I like to put it on two separate effects, because this does have that RGB section, it's just not quite best for being able to toggle them on and off. So here I can see this is what it looks like before color correction. Here's with color correction. And here's with that extra little bit of grade just to push it a little bit further. You may even choose to do your white and black color correction on 2 different controls. It doesn't matter. You can set it up however you like if you really need to be able to see those changes happening over time. So let's move on to our next clip where we'll summarize what we've learned in this module.